I saw this, I don't know, Sunday, a resolution to encourage breastfeeding. It's just a goddamn resolution. There were hundreds of government delegates gathered in Geneva for the United Nations affiliated World Health Assembly. And a resolution was written up that encouraged breastfeeding. Now, for some of you who remember the 80s, this is going to remind you of the Nestle criminal activity, Nestle company. I'll get that in a second. But anyway, based on decades of research and empirical evidence, the resolution said that mother's milk is healthiest for children and countries should strive to limit the inaccurate or misleading marketing of substitutes. And then the delegation from the good old fucking United States embraced the interests of infant formula manufacturers and upended the discussion. Our representatives at the at the World Health Assembly, our representatives tried to water down the resolution by removing language that called on governments to, quote, protect, promote, and support breastfeeding, end quote. These dirty fuckers that represent the United States from Trump, they wanted those 5 words taken out. The Americans who were there acting like fucking clowns and beasts wanted another passage taken out. That passage called on government policymakers around the world to restrict the promotion of food products that many experts say can have deleterious effects on young children. That was the second fuck up that the United States tried to do. And when that failed, now get this, when the delegates from the great fucking United States of America attending the World Health Assembly tried to shill for companies that make this puke that comes in cans, when they failed, the representatives from the United States turned to threats, according to diplomats and government officials who took part in the discussions. Ecuador, Jesus Christ, Ecuador had planned to introduce the measure, this resolution that says breastfeeding is in the best interest of babies. But when Ecuador decided to introduce the measure, that was the first country to find itself in the crosshairs of these capitalist fuckwads in the United States. Here's what the Americans told the Ecuadorians. If Ecuador refused to drop the resolution, the Trump administration would unleash punishing trade measures and withdraw crucial military aid. So the government of Ecuador folded. Can you fucking believe this? And then this sentence. Now, again, this is from the Washington Post. Listen to this sentence. The showdown over the issue was recounted by more than a dozen participants from several countries, many of whom requested anonymity because they feared retaliation from the United States. Where the fuck do we live? Well, you know where we live. So, advocates for health. Now keep in mind, these dirty, filthy, goddamn American fascists, a.k.a. the Republican Party, they scream and piss their pants and shit themselves as they run around with their hair on fire to protect fetuses. But when it comes to newborn babies, these hypocritical Christian fucks will do everything they can, witness what happened in Geneva, to stop babies from getting the most nutritional food on earth, their own mother's breast milk. You dirty, dirty bastards, you. I hope there is a hell, and I hope you sons of bitches roast in it. These are white, male, Christian conservatives. Patty Rundle, the policy director of the British advocacy group Baby Milk Action, who has attended meetings of this assembly since the late 1980s. Ms. Rundle said, quote, "We were astonished, appalled, and saddened by what the U.S. did." She said what happened, quote, "What happened was tantamount to blackmail, with the United States holding the world hostage and trying to overturn nearly 40 years of consensus on the best way to protect infant and young child health," end quote. Jesus Christ. Health advocates at this convention tried to find another sponsor for the resolution. But according to the Washington Post, at least a dozen countries, most of them poor nations in Africa and Latin America, backed off, citing fears of retaliation. In the end, however, the Americans' efforts were mostly unsuccessful. Guess what? It was the Russians who ultimately stepped in to introduce the measure that the so-called third world countries, the poor countries, the shithole countries, as Trump called them, were afraid to do. So Russia stepped up. And they introduced the measure. And these cowardly fucking Christian Americans who were there didn't say a word. No effort to blackmail the Russians. Not a word. Not a threat. Silence. When the Washington Post got a hold of somebody in the State Department, asked for a comment on all this, the State Department said, "No, we don't respond to questions. We don't discuss private diplomatic conversations, you dirty fuckers." The Department of Health and Human Services, lead agency in the effort to modify that resolution to get the truth out of it and fill it with lying bullshit. HHS explained the decision to contest the resolution's wording, but they said, "We didn't threaten Ecuador. Who threatened Ecuador? Did somebody threaten Ecuador? Oh, for heaven's sake." In an email to the Washington Post, a spokesman for Health and Human Services said, quote, "The resolution, as originally drafted, placed unnecessary hurdles for mothers seeking to provide nutrition to their children." Hurdles? "We recognize not all women are able to breastfeed for a variety of reasons. These women should have the choice and access to alternatives for the health of their babies, and not be stigmatized for the ways in which they're able to do so." And the person who said that had to remain anonymous. Of course, the truth is, no fucking body at this conference was trying to stigmatize women who, for whatever reason, were not able to breastfeed their babies. That was not the issue. That's the bullshit the Trumpists throw at everything. "Oh, we're just trying. We want the new mommies to have freedom." Do they want to breastfeed, or they want to have some filthy fucking company like Nestle provide them with powder to third world countries, which will kill the babies Because there is no potable water in these countries. There's no fucking clean drinking water. And the people who are handed these cans of white powder and told them mix it with water and give it to your kid. And then the kid gets dysentery, amoebic dysentery, or God knows what, and shits himself to death. A little baby.